What's up, Wolverine fans? Jack here, and I am, of course, talking about Michigan at Michigan State. Now, after that game yesterday, I was angry. I was really angry. I was pissed off. And I wanted to sit down, start recording right away, and rant. I just wanted to rant because I was pissed off. And I have a bit of a hit list for you guys from this game. No, of course, it's not an actual hit list, okay? Take the joke. But I have a bit of a hit list. I have some things I want to talk about, some names to bring up. And it's not all talking about Michigan. I mean, Michigan State had some really good performances, some strong coaching in that game that is deserved of being highlighted. But right now, I want to talk about some things from Michigan. I don't have this long laid out list of topics or analysis to give you guys, but I want to let you know why they lost this game, who's responsible for it, and what they're going to have to do moving forward, and what the rest of their season is going to have to be, or should be for them, or will be. So with that, I have the stats pulled up in front of me. I watched every second of that game, and let's get right into it. Now, first and foremost, I have to start with the fact that I know Michigan fans are upset about the officiating in this game. And yes, the officiating did have an outcome in the score. It did. There's no hiding it. I think any Michigan State fan should admit that the officiating, with every questionable call for Michigan State, went in Michigan State's favor. With every questionable call for the Wolverines, it went in Michigan State's favor. Everyone. And I can count about 4 missed holding calls by the Michigan State offensive line. A couple questionable missed defensive pass interference calls missed on Michigan State. But again, that's not why Michigan lost the game. Michigan beat themselves. Michigan played the better game. As a collective, they were the better team. And the first thing I want to take issue with, and the first thing I want to highlight for you guys, is this. Not only did Michigan win the time of possession battle, 34 minutes to 25. Which you say, well, what do I care? In the modern college football, that doesn't really matter because teams aren't running it 90 times a game anymore. So time of possession doesn't mean as much. Offenses are scoring a lot faster, which is true. So ignore time of possession then. You know, Michigan was better on third down. Michigan was 8 of 17 to Michigan State's 4 of 13. So that's the thing. You know, Michigan won the total yards battle, 552 yards to 395. That's pretty substantial. You know, Michigan's passing numbers, 406 yards to Michigan State's 196. Michigan had over double the passing yards in this game. And you say, well, Michigan State ran the ball well. Michigan had 146 rushing yards in the game. Michigan State had 199. That's only about a 50-yard difference. And you know how the hilarious thing about it? They both had 2 turnovers. Michigan had a fumble and an interception to seal the game. Michigan State had 2 interceptions in the first quarter. And yet, Michigan still lost 33-37. So that's a problem. The fact that Michigan, on paper, played the better game and still managed to lose. But games aren't played on paper, right? Let's take a look at how this game went. At one point, Michigan is up at the end of the second quarter, 23-14. It's a 9-point lead. After the first quarter, they're up 10-0. Michigan State got a couple touchdowns in the second quarter, closed the game up. Even with that, though, moving on from that, in the third quarter, Michigan is up 30-14 with a Mike Sainristil touchdown. That's a 16-point lead. Not only did Michigan, in the third quarter, give up a touchdown and a 2-point conversion, but also to kick off the fourth quarter, they gave up another touchdown and another 2-point conversion. Jake Moody hit another field goal to go up 33-30. What does Michigan State do? Score another touchdown to go up 37-33. And with that, Michigan still had time to get down the field and score. They had sub 2 minutes to get down the field and score a touchdown to win the game. And with a minute left, Cade McNamara threw the game-sealing interception. Now, I'm not going to put this on Cade. Cade actually played his best game of the season. He was put in a very difficult situation at the end of the game to try and come back to win it. I can't blame him for that. That's the team. But we talked about, leading up to this game, Michigan State has the quarterback advantage. They have the passing game advantage. And Michigan blew them out of the water through the air. Michigan had 406 yards, 3 touchdowns, and the interception at the end between J.J. McCarthy and Cade McNamara. Peyton Thorne, 196 yards, 2 interceptions, both in the first quarter. And Michigan still blew that. They still blew that, despite the gross advantage in the passing game. Despite having at one point a 16-point lead, still blew it. And you know what's so great about it? This is now the 3rd time this season we've seen Michigan collapse in the second half. Absolutely fall apart. They go from scoring 23 points in the first half to 10 in the second half. They went from giving up 14 points in the second quarter to 23 in the second half. First quarter, defense played great. No issues. Second half of the game, collapse. They couldn't stop Kenneth Walker after the first quarter. Kenneth Walker had a historic 5-touchdown game, the most scored on Michigan on the ground in this rivalry. Once he hit his 4th rushing touchdown, I knew Michigan was done. Because a historic performance like that, it's really hard to lose a game when you have a historic performance like that on your team. This is now the 3rd time Mike Macdonald specifically has been out-coordinated, out-coached in the second half this year. Started with the Rutgers game, but a turnover, fumble by the quarterback at the end, prevented them from getting down the field to tie the game. Happened against Nebraska, when Nebraska scored 22 points in the 3rd quarter alone on Michigan. But a fumble on Adrian Martinez at the end of the game sealed the deal for Nebraska when they were trying to tie it with a field goal or win it with a touchdown. And now for the 3rd time, Michigan has been outdone, giving up 3 rushing touchdowns in the second half to Kenneth Walker, being out-coached in the second half by a coaching staff with a second-year head coach in Mel Tucker, with plenty of new coordinators on this staff, on a team full of transfers. You allowed Kenneth Walker, a Wake Forest transfer, to run for 5 touchdowns on you. People were thinking Michigan could have had the best front 7 in the Big Ten. Or at least one of the best front 7s in the Big Ten, if not one of the best in the country. And Kenneth Walker did that. If he wasn't brought down by the first tackler, he would jump to the outside and gut Michigan's run defense. On top of that, let's move on to the next point here. The real turning point in this game, for me, had to be the J.J. McCarthy fumble. And no, not the first one. The second one. In the 3rd quarter, when the Michigan defense gave you the stop you needed, they held Michigan State, they held Kenneth Walker, and they got the stop Michigan needed. And then A.J. Henning gives you the return you needed. Michigan is standing on the Michigan State logo, 33-30, with the ability to score a touchdown and possibly effectively end the game for Michigan State. They would have had a 10-point lead, and it would have been very difficult for Michigan State to come back. It's not impossible, but it would have been difficult. Michigan State would be the one fighting to come back, not Michigan. But you know what happens? Well, Cade McNamara is having his best game of the year. I kid you not, his best game of the year. They rolled out the freshman quarterback. I don't care how talented he is. They rolled out their freshman quarterback on a wet day in East Lansing, who has already fumbled the ball once. And they were borderline lucky that Michigan State did not pick up that fumble. They rolled him out there again to start a drive. Not your starting quarterback. Not your starting quarterback that's had his best game of the year. A freshman quarterback who's had no rhythm to know when they will or will not put him on the field. And they put J.J. McCarthy back out there. And you know what he did? He fumbled the ball. And he didn't fumble the ball because of a hit. It wasn't stripped away from him. He dropped it. J.J. McCarthy dropped the ball. And Michigan State recovered it. And you know what they did after they recovered that fumble? They went down the field and scored the touchdown to take the lead. And then Michigan got the football to try and score again, and it didn't work. And then you forced the punt. And you know what Michigan did? They threw the interception with 1 minute left. That's why this game is so infuriating. Is because even when they had the opportunity, 2 opportunities to score to win the game, they still managed to blow it. You've now allowed Mel Tucker to start off 2-0 against Michigan. The first time any Michigan State head coach has started off 2-0 against Michigan. Michigan came into this game with the best run game in the country and couldn't get into the end zone on the ground. The run defense was abysmal. The run game was not good enough. This is Michigan's most embarrassing loss since the last time they lost to Michigan State. It's most certainly their most disappointing loss because something was going to happen. Either Jim Harbaugh was going to lose for the first time as a player and coach in East Lansing, or he was going to win his first game on the road against a top 10 opponent. Well, it wasn't the later of those 2 options. Now, in my preview of this game, I had 3 keys to victory heading into this game for the Wolverines. 1, set the edge, contain Kenneth Walker to in between the tackles. Indiana did it. Nebraska did it. Wolverines didn't do it. 2, don't settle for field goals. Early on in the game, I understood the first field goal. Michigan had the 7-point lead, scored the touchdown, got back down the field. It was 4th and short. I believe 4th and 2 or 4th and 3, around the 10-yard line. How do you not go for it in that situation? On the road, have never beaten a top 10 team on the road under Jim Harbaugh. How do you not go for the touchdown there? Or at the very least, the first down? They kicked the field goal. I said, okay, that's fine. You want the 10-point lead. Then they do it again. Get down the field. 4th and 2, 4th or 3. Around the 10-yard line. Kick the field goal again. And I said right then and there, they are going to regret settling for those field goals. If they don't get it, obviously, you're able to keep Michigan State at the 10-yard line. Trust your defense. Instead, and that was just 2 of 4 field goals on the game. And here is where I talk about Josh Gaddis. Now, it's hard to be too upset with Josh Gaddis when the run game was fine, when Cade McNamara had a very good game, when J.J. McCarthy threw a fantastic touchdown pass. But why are you rolling J.J. McCarthy out at random to start a drive in the middle of the 3rd quarter? Enough. It's not tricking defenses. It got Michigan State in the first half. They weren't going to let it happen in the second half. And regardless of that, the kid dropped the ball. Twice. After the first time, they sent him out there to do it again. Stop settling for field goals. You need to get more aggressive in the red zone. I talked about how I thought Jake Moody was going to make a few field goals in this game, and he made more than a few. Michigan could have ended this football game. They don't have to convert on both of those 4th downs. As long as they get 1 in the first quarter, after they were gifted 2 interceptions by Peyton Thorne in the first 10 minutes of the game, Michigan State is in a bad spot there. But they blew those opportunities to play aggressive early and try to shut Michigan State down before they can get started. Imagine if instead of 10-0 to start the game, Michigan is 17-0. That changes the dynamic a little bit. But instead, they settled for the field goals. Something I think a lot of people said they should not do. And they still did it. My 3rd key to victory was get to the quarterback. And they did do a very good job of that. But even when they do that, and they force a fumble on Peyton Thorne, and they scoop it up for a touchdown, refs decided that that wasn't going to happen. So yes, I'm upset at the refs. And I'm upset at Mike McDonald. But the defense is playing better than I thought it would year 1 anyway. So take it for what it is. And I'm upset at Josh Gaddis. And I'm upset at Jim Harbaugh. Now, I'm not going to act like the ceiling is falling down on this program. They're 7-1, probably a top 12 team still after the AP poll comes out. They're fine. But this was supposed to be a different team. This was supposed to be different. This year was different. This team is different. The culture is different. I don't know if there's anything different about it. Because this team fell apart, and the coaching staff got out-coached. with a head coach in year 7, an offensive coordinator in year 3. Yeah, they got new pieces on this coaching staff, but those new pieces were only part of the problem in this game. There were fundamental flaws that cost Michigan this football game. It reminded me of Nebraska, which is embarrassing to say. So no, I don't think the ceiling is falling down. But here's where I talk about what Michigan can do next, and I'm going to wrap up the video here and try to edit this as best I can because I got a little loud at some points in this video because I'm passionate and I'm upset and I'm sick of watching games like this happen. I'm sick of the fumble in 2015 against Michigan State. I'm sick of the upset last year to Michigan State, the upset this year to Michigan State, the J.T. Barrett was short game in 2016, the Iowa field goal in 2016, losing by a point to Florida State in 2016, getting embarrassed in 2018 to Ohio State, getting embarrassed in 2019 to Ohio State. I'm sick of these games. I'm sick of Michigan being on the wrong end of embarrassing games. They are the embarrassing loss. They don't get to have the win. Any head coach can win 90 to 95% of games you're supposed to win and lose 90 to 95% of the games you're supposed to lose. That has been Michigan through 7 years of Jim Harbaugh's tenure. And it's embarrassing. And it's disappointing. But the ceiling is not falling down. Not yet. Once they lose another game, sure. Even if they win their next 3 games and then lose to Ohio State. But that's where Michigan is going right now. The way that this season is lining up, they're going to walk into that Ohio State game as a 10-1 team and probably get murdered. Now, I don't want to talk about too many hypotheticals, but let's say Michigan does lose another game. Let's say they go to Happy Valley and lose to Penn State. They beat Ohio State at the end of the year. Nobody's talking about the Michigan State game. Not a soul. Beat Ohio State. Beat Penn State. Save your season. But who's to say what's going to happen, right? No idea. The point is, Michigan fans, the season is still ahead of them. There's still a lot of games to be played. I don't know how they're going to go, but right now their aspirations need to be set to make a New Year's Six Bowl. Find a way to play for a Big Ten title, which isn't realistic at this point, obviously, but you never know, right? Beat Ohio State. Beat Penn State. Beat the teams you're supposed to beat. Season's not over yet. This is a very young coaching staff in their first year. A loss was expected at some point. Michigan is doing a lot better than people expected them to be doing. But the problem is so is Michigan State. But good for Michigan State. Kenneth Walker had an incredible game, and he just had a Heisman moment. Some people, they like to joke about Heisman moments, saying that it's a very overrated thing. I don't think those people know what they're talking about. This was a Heisman moment for Kenneth Walker. A Heisman type of game. 5 touchdowns. That is incredible. Good for Mel Tucker. He's doing something that we have never really seen before at Michigan State. So good for him. Good for Andrel Anthony. That freshman, he was a 3-star coming out of high school from the state of Michigan. Had 155 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was a secret weapon the Wolverines pulled out and utilized early and often, and he had an incredible game. Eric All had a career-high 10 catches for 98 yards. Great game for him. Those were 2 guys that we have not seen Andrel Anthony hardly at all this year. Same with Eric All, and they pulled those 2 out, and they were used very well. Aiden Hutchinson had another sack, had a great game. He looks like the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. David Ajabo, another forced fumble. Josh Ross led the team in tackles. Daxton Hill had 2 passes defended. He is the best player in that secondary. Michigan had some very strong performances here. And that's why I'm not slamming the team as much as I am the coaches. The coaches, I think, lost this game for Michigan. But that's going to wrap it up for the episode, guys. I had a lot I wanted to get off my chest there because I am upset, just like you guys are. But remember, the season's not over. We don't know what the future holds for them. Ideally, Michigan uses this to get hungry and to get angry, to dominate Indiana, to dominate Penn State, to dominate Maryland. I don't know if it's going to happen, but to dominate Ohio State. If that doesn't happen, then Michigan's going to have a real problem. So thank you for listening, guys. Hopefully I'll be able to get you an episode talking about Indiana. I'm going to drop a little video this week as well, talking about some of the big games that happened over the weekend. Do a little preview of this upcoming weekend of games. It hurts being a Michigan fan, guys, but the season's not over. So go blue, and thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe.